Welcome to the month of December, and the Rays and Pinellas County are being very passive aggressive.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast we talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. You can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Blue Sky, Sully Baseball Podcast on the Instagrams. And today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. You could start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So the deadline has come and gone for some of the votes and some of the political wranglings that are going on in Tampa Bay. And at this point, it is a very important story if you are a baseball fan, and it should be something that the commissioner of baseball should be playing a gigantic part in right now, quite frankly. We're going to have two teams, one of whom will probably be a contender in 2025, playing in a minor league ballpark. Now, we've talked long and hard about the Oakland A's. That's completely their fault. It's completely a mess that they've created, and I have zero sympathy for them. I have zero sympathy, not for the people of Oakland, but for John Fisher and the organization. They made that bed, and they have to lie in it. The Rays are a much different situation, and it's an absolute and complete and total mess. And because things have dragged on for so long, many of the commissioners that they have to approve certain bonds and approve certain votes have come and gone since the last election. There's been an election in the middle of this mess, and the roof has been ripped off of Tropicana Field. And we talked long and hard about this the other day. We had a great session with Mr. Weiss from the Locked On Rays show. Well, today the Rays drafted a letter, or I guess yesterday drafted a letter, and to the Pinellas County chairwoman who is in charge of the whole mess, Kathleen Peters. And it is filled with all the things that make you hate lawyers, all the sort of vague, we're doing what we want to do, and we're still on. If you want to do it, it is so wishy-washy in terms of how it is phrased. Regarding the status of the various agreements, they're in full effect until a party terminates or outside dates are reached. The Rays have fulfilled its obligation and continue to wait for decisions and action by the city of St. Petersburg and Pinellas County. It's essentially a game of chicken. Pinellas County, the new people involved there, are not the biggest fans of spending millions and millions, and I mentioned millions of dollars on a ballpark, especially in the wake of what's been happening over the last couple of months. The Rays thought they had everything in place to build a ballpark in the middle of what was going to be a new city in Pinellas County. They were going to, there's an obvious place to put the Rays Stadium, which is in downtown Tampa, or maybe Ybor City. But they built it in St. Petersburg in the 80s before they figured out a lot of stuff. That was two stadium trends ago that they put the ballpark in St. Petersburg. Well, they should have put it in downtown Tampa. They also should have built, when they built the new stadium for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they should have made a multi-purpose stadium, but they didn't. And I guess it would have been a big ask for a multi-purpose stadium in the mid-90s, just as the new team was moving into Tropicana. But Tropicana has been outdated since the nanosecond it walked in. And when they stopped trying to lure other teams in, they finally got an expansion team. By the time they woke up, said, "Oh yeah, this place sucks," and it's in the wrong place. Now we've gone over all of that, but now we're stuck in a place where the Rays are saying, basically, well, we don't want to stop it. What do you want to do? Do you want to stop it? It's a game of chicken that's going on here, and one where both sides can point the proverbial finger at the other. This was supposed to be a drop dead deadline, but it was a weird drop dead deadline for a lot of approvals because it was over Thanksgiving weekend, as if a lot of things are going to happen there. But because all these delays are going on, they were supposed to be doing a groundbreaking in January to aim for having the new stadium opened in 2028. And that was before. That's the assumption then was they were going to be still playing in Tropicana Field for the 2025, 26, and 27 season, and then going to the new ballpark in 2028. Well, now, if everything goes right, and so far not a lot of things are, that's 3 years where they can't play in the Trop. They can't play next year. You probably can't play the year before, and they probably have to total the darn thing. So they'll be playing in minor league ballparks, whether it's Steinbrenner Field or Dunedin or wherever. Again, bringing up the idea, if they can't come up with an agreement there, then they have to start from scratch, which means we're talking 2030, 2031 before a ballpark can be opened. Are you really going to have 6 years at a minor league ballpark? This is when you have to, as I said, you have to take a good long look at the other places where it could potentially put a team as quickly as 2026. You may be able to pull off 1 year in this disastrous situation. I think 2 is too much. I'm going to read a couple of things that some of my esteemed listeners have written on this topic because we did a big podcast on it last week. Tim Firth 24 writes, I think the Rays will go to Plan B and build the same $1.3 billion, $3 billion, 30,000 seat fixed roof ballpark adjacent to Raymond James Stadium. Okay, that's, by the way, that's where the Bucks play. All right. Is there a stadium designed? Is there financing approved? Has the city approved it? I mean, we've seen that doesn't happen quickly. We've seen that makes you long for the swift effectiveness of the DMV. I mean, if they go through that, what are we talking at 2031? And where do they play between them? This is where losing the Trop really hurts. And someone else brought up an interesting idea for what to do regarding the Trop situation. Who was it? This was I'm gonna read. There's 2 more I'm gonna read here. Matthew Robinson 763 says Manfred says he wants to keep the Rays in Tampa, and let the record show I don't want to relocate the Rays. I'm just saying you may have to if we're talking more than half a decade of playing in minor league ballparks. You may have to take a good long look at New Orleans or San Antonio or Omaha as a place where they can play realistically 2026. But this is back to Matthew Robinson's comment. Manfred wants the Rays to stay, but then he just leaves it to the government officials to figure it out. Major League Baseball has money to financially support the Rays if they want to. Manfred is pathetic, all say and no doing, just cowardly. You can't argue with that. Manfred should have stepped in with the Oakland situation. There were a lot of ways to solve that, including opening up the stadium rights of San Jose or pushing for a new ownership instead of putting them in the situation that they're in now. There is no excuse for what was happening for that. But in this situation, this is why you need a commissioner to say, hey, this is not good for the game. This is horrible for the game, and you're going to basically torpedo 2 franchises in the American League. But that's going to bring us to the big long comment, which I'm going to get to after this. But one of my readers or one of my listeners wrote something really interesting, which I think is um, worth taking a listen to because it breaks down some of the things that, in terms of thinking outside of the proverbial box that baseball could do and Major League Baseball could do to solve this. All right, let's hear from our friends over at FanDuel. You know what FanDuel is. It's America's #1 sportsbook. And get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel. What's going to happen this season? Are the Chiefs going to win it again? Or one of the four mediocre teams in the NFC West? Which one is going to get to the playoffs? Or will one of them run the table and get all the way to the Super Bowl? I don't know, but if you know, maybe you should go to FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get bet $5 and get 150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, I think the Seahawks are going to do it. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page when you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and never waste a moment more with FanDuel, an official sports partner of the NFL. All right, I'm going to read this comment. Am I back? Okay, I'm going to read this comment. Sorry, there's a little glitch on my screen here. I'm not going to edit that out. This is from a really good listener of mine, Tim G6125. And he wrote to me a little bit of a tome, and it's worth reading. This is Tim G talking. Here's what I think should be done. There are 30 Major League Baseball teams. Each one could chip in $1 million. That's $30 million. You could even take it out of the competitive balance taxes. A lot of other owners just pocket that money anyway. If you need to, up it to $50 million. Use whatever insurance money or FEMA money you get from the rest. Just do the repair of the roof of the Trop. Try to do it as cheaply as possible. After all, they only need it for 4 years. Then move into the new stadium as planned. This is preferable to trying to make do with playing minor league ballparks or someplace far away for the next 4 years. In the future, some portions of the competitive balance taxes should be set aside to handle stadium situations like this, even just a 5% per year until you build up a reserve fund. Invest the fund or whatever until needed. Teams can pay into it as insurance. I think that's great. All these teams we keep hearing about the revenues of baseball have never been higher. Revenues of baseball have never been higher. And some of these teams are swimming in money. And for the good of the game, this is what the commissioners should be screaming. Okay? It's healthier for baseball to have the situation for a stadium with the Rays and the A's better than playing in Sacramento or in Steinbrenner Field. And what happened, as I said, what happened to the A's, that's a greedy liar, okay? What happened with the Rays were trying to do the right thing. The Rays were trying to come up with a situation to stay in Central Florida. The Rays are trying to find a situation where they could build a new stadium, build a new potential money-making community, city in St. Petersburg, and all of that. But it's better for baseball, every team, if you don't have two teams playing in a minor league field. It's better for your players when you're coming into the stadium, you're playing in a major league uh, uh, facility. I know that basically Major League Baseball is 30 different teams, 30 different companies with their own revenue and everything like that, loosely connected. But this is where the commissioner comes in. Say, hey, everybody, for the amount of money that you would, if you paid, let's say, $3 million for a utility infielder, would you blink twice? So if you have 30 teams chipping in $3 million, there you go. There's $90 million right there. that you could use to come up with a temporary solution. Rig something. And the Rays will be in a situation where they aren't relocating. As I said, I don't want them to relocate. If they're going to expand, I would rather New Orleans put together a great package for an expansion. I'd rather San Antonio or Omaha make a great bid for an expansion instead of taking away the Rays. Rays fans are there. Rays fans are great. And Rays fans support them on TV and everything like that. They need a new stadium. I know where they should be playing. But if they want to avoid all this mess with Pinellas County, then yeah, it's good for all the teams to not have your players play in Steinbrenner Field in the heat, doing double headers, all this other stuff. Is that worth a utility infielder to you? And let's talk even more money. Baseball is foaming at the mouth for expansion. There are great markets. I casually mentioned New Orleans. I casually mentioned San Antonio. I think Portland is a great market. A lot of people like Vegas as a market. I'm not crazy about it, but I've been proven wrong. Some people want Montreal as a market, and then there are two big ones. Charlotte is a great market, and Nashville is just sitting there percolating for a team. It's one of the reasons why the White Sox are kicking the tires there. But if you're going to expand, then there's the expansion fees that come in that you'll be able to recoup the costs of whatever we all chip in to fix the dome at the Trop would be recouped with the expansion. And here's the deal. That expansion is not going to take place as long as the A's and the Rays are in this situation. It doesn't make sense to expand when you have two teams in flux. And these two teams have been in flux for more than a decade now. But now it's come to a head. This is the sort of thing that should have been figured out 10 years ago at least. But you know what? You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. And everyone knows there's a big windfall that comes to all the teams. All 30 teams get a windfall when they do the expansion fees. Great. In order to get that, maybe you got to chip in a little money to get to that point. And then end this situation, end this nonsense. So Tim G 6125, I think that's a great idea. You know, it's called, I don't know, doing the right thing and eventually profiting from it. What a concept. Hey, let's hear from our friends over at Game Time. Hey, I've used Game Time before. They came through for me big time when I went to see the National League Championship Series. I saw the Dodgers clinch against the Mets in Game 6. Got a great deal and great seats through Game Time. And now Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks that gives you curation to make it easy to save more on sports, concert, comedy, theater, and more. You get seat views, a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy, the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And you got the Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Well, quick things here. I like what the Angels have been doing. They've been having, I think, a very interesting uh, off season where they've picked up a bunch of veterans: Kevin Newman, Jorge Soler, Travis d'Arnaud. They made the big signing for Yusei Kikuchi. They brought in Hendricks. I like what they're doing. It's ironic. I guess it's not ironic, but it's appropriate that they brought in Jorge Soler, who, of course, was the big piece in the the World Series championship for the um, for the Braves when they did. The Braves basically showed how to do it, which was, hey, make sure there's a major leaguer at every position, even if you lose your MVP, even all these other players you lose. Make sure you put a major leaguer at each position. Well, they're going to have Jorge Soler and Travis d'Arnaud as major leaguers, and they already have. They're going to have some good depth at catcher with Logan O'Hoppe already there. Um, the Angels have a couple of decent players there. If Mike Trout, I've been, I made the case that it may be time to give Mike Trout a first baseman's glove, or to say, Mike Trout, you're a DH. You are a DH. There you go. And to sort of take your chances with the Taylor Wards and the Jorge Solers and maybe the Mickey Moniak, who remember was once a first round draft pick, a number one pick, to play center field. I think having young pitchers like Reed Detmers and Jose Soriano and Jack Kohanowitz. I think I pronounced his name correctly. You're going to ask Hendricks and Kikuchi to give them some, relieve some of the pressure from them. But what I think they should do now, because I do not trust their bullpen. I don't. If I were the Angels, I would be just going up and down, kind of what they've been doing, and just try to grab as many veteran relievers as possible. And also pick a couple of pitchers who have been, decent starting pitchers over the years who might be at the tail end of their starting pitching time and say, hey, you get to be a spot starter, long reliever. Someone like a Lance Lynn is still floating around there. Give him a shot. Give him a short-term deal. Give Drew Smiley a short-term deal. There are other people out there. I'm looking at the pitchers like, you know, I just had his name here. I mentioned Lance Lynn. I mentioned Scott Alexander, who pitched for the A's last year. And is he a Cy Young contender? No, but left-handers can't hit him. And so having another, having some veteran pitchers in there, and Kenley Jansen, who I don't really trust to be the closer anymore, but you know, get as many major league pitchers in there and starters who, you could use them out of the pen. They should just go absolute supermarket sweep on them, because you take a look at this American League. You don't know what's going to happen with the Rays. This situation could absolutely torpedo their season. The A's season has been torpedoed based on what's going to happen in Sacramento. And you don't know what some of these teams are going to do this year, but you also know there's no superstar team. There's no great team. The Yankees aren't a great team. They're a good team. And if they lose Juan Soto, they're going to be a bit of a mess. What is Cleveland going to be the best team? Is Baltimore going to be the best team if they lose Corbin Burns? This is the ideal time to pull Operation 2013 Red Sox or Operation 2021 Braves and just grab as many veterans as possible, stick them in all the spots, and take your chances. Because right now, the Angels have had a full decade without playing a single postseason game. This is the longest drought of any current team. Longest drought. Expanded playoffs, even the COVID playoffs. Angels couldn't sniff the postseason. It's getting too late for that. We want to see Mike Trout back in there. I like what they're doing. Keep doing it. And let's, before we take off, let's wish a happy birthday to George Foster. George Foster played 18 years in the major leagues, primarily with the Cincinnati Reds, where he was a mainstay for the Big Red Machine. In fact, he was the MVP of the National League in 1977. And the first 2 years I collected baseball cards, George Foster led the league in home runs in both those years, 77 and 78. Jim Rice also led the league in home runs in those 2 years. And as a young kid, I thought, well, they're going to lead the league every year. He didn't. He had a wonderful career, hit 348 home runs, won a pair of World Series, won the MVP in for the Reds in 1977, and eventually found his way with the Mets. Played for the Mets for a little bit. He was traded away in the Alex Trevino trade, and didn't get along. He was on the 86 Mets for most of the year, and they cut him. He didn't get along with everyone there, and he was picked up by the White Sox, played about a month with the White Sox, and lost a chance to play in another World Series. I think he's okay. The San Francisco Giants were the first team to employ George Foster, and they traded him away for infielder Frank Duffy and also for a player named Vern Geisert, who was a pitcher who wound up playing for neither Cincinnati nor San Francisco on the major league level. That's a horrible trade. And those Giant teams from the early 70s, besides trading away Willie Mays and Willie McCovey towards the end of their careers, dealt away Bobby Bonds, Gary Matthews, Dave Kingman, and George Foster. That is a lot of power that could have helped those Giants teams. But George Foster, wonderful career, and one of the big home run hitters of the late 1970s. Happy birthday to you. And happy December to everyone. We got our Christmas decorations up here at Casa del Sully. And we're going to find out. Are we going to find out any more news about Tampa Bay? Or are we going to find out news about Juan Soto? We'll find out soon, but follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now. And on Instagram, I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Talking about a game of chicken in Tampa Bay and why baseball needs to, I don't know, get their act together so they can get rich. This has been Locked On MLB for December 1st, 2024. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.